Hi, welcome. I'm Meredith McCarthy. Nice to have you join me today on this Talk Time series. We talk about all sorts of things to do with hypnosis. So if you're keen to learn more about what hypnotherapy is and how we actually work with clients, then you've come to the right place. I've got Teresa Saunders who's going to be joining me in a moment, and we're going to be covering a really nice topic today. What is the secret to unlocking your true potential, and how we use a humanistic approach, humanistic psychology in hypnotherapy practice. So hope you enjoyed what we've got coming up next.
Hi Meredith, how are you this week?
I'm good, thank you, Teresa. And what about yourself?
I'm good, thank you. Nice sunny weather this week.
Absolutely. We've just come off the back end of a conference, the NZAPH conference, New Zealand. Oh dear, I've just gone blank.
The New Zealand Association of Professional Hypnotherapists conference.
Absolutely. It was here in Wellington, New Zealand, and it was a really good time, wasn't it?
It was. It went very well. I think all attendees really had fun and enjoyed networking, and it was a great opportunity to meet in person again.
What I notice is when there's a presenter, they often come in presenting in their own way of how they work with a client. And it's kind of like anything. People have their own unique flavour, don't they, when they're working with their clients?
For sure, they really do. And it's interesting at the conference to see people that work in their own unique way, but there's also a common thread as well of how they actually work.
If we think about that humanistic response, this is something that is important for me when I'm with a client, to hold space enough that I'm not interrupting them unnecessarily, but I'm wanting to kind of go, what's going on for them? But I want to hear it from their side. I don't want to try and mind read them at all. What are your thoughts?
Oh, for sure. And I think that's something like a trap, especially when you're early on in your career, that you can actually fall into wanting to get that answer and trying to answer it for people rather than just allowing them to have that gentle journey and release it to you as they need to. Let it unfold.
What pops into my mind is accidentally causing a resistant client. So if you're coming in there too early with solutions, what do you think happens, Teresa?
You break rapport with them. They think that you're sort of, telling them what to do, and that's not good.
Even if it was the best idea ever, the person needs to be the one that comes up with their idea, because they're more likely to own it, right?
That's true. Yeah, we don't like being told what to do we? Even from early on in our life, we don't like being said, "You've got to do this now," or "How about?" We're not. We're more resistant, aren't we, when we're told what to do? However, if we feel that it's our thoughts of what to do and feel as if it's come from us, then we're have a more tendency to have a go and try it.
Definitely. One of the things that pops into my mind is the client has the answer. This is something that I was taught, and it was drilled into my head over the years by being in situations where I wasn't really sure what to do with that client yet. And I would just kind of take my time to sort of see what else will they reveal to me that could be significant or important, and what are the kind of questions that I might start to ask that client that could help them self-actualise. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point to make. I also think that sometimes with clients, just giving them that space to talk to you, because they may need to pause because they're thinking about what they need to unpack and tell you, or nervous because rapport hasn't quite been made yet, or it's the first time they've ever told anybody this part of their story. So sometimes just pausing and allowing your client to continue without pushing them forwards into, well, rushing them, I guess you could say.
We've got a pace. I remember a little wee diagram that someone showed me once, like a racehorse, and just kind of thinking about them going around a track, okay? So if, for example, you're ahead of the horse rather than walking with the horse or behind the horse, that can change how the client might be feeling. So imagine the client's the horse and you are walking with the client, okay, or with the horse. It's going to be a much better journey. But if you are 1,000 steps before the horses, you've got a problem, because the horse might disappear and leave you and you wouldn't even notice. You keep on talking, and the horse is gone. And it's not until you look back and go, oh, when did I lose the horse?
This is true. And again, it's something I think with experience, that you learn to build.
I think too, asking the right kind of question that isn't too leading. So when we're looking at a open-ended question versus a closed question, we have covered this a little bit in some of the Talk Time episodes, but I just want to talk about it again in that humanistic, client-centered approach. Open-ended questions are really important, because if you go into closed questions or yes/no questions, you might be limiting the client in the way of what they feel they're allowed to express to you. If you ask an open-ended question where you say, tell me about why you came in today, rather than looking on their sheet that they've just written, I need help with stress and anxiety. Okay, that's nice, but why have you come in? What's really going on here? I know that you've got stress and anxiety, but if we start off with, so tell me about your stress, or tell me about your anxiety, that's actually more pointed, right? So you're going to get a much more sort of potentially narrow piece of information. But if you go a little bit more global with your question, say, tell me about what's really brought you in today. Now the client's going to present whatever it is that's most important to them for you to understand about them, right?
Yes, and I think you need to be careful as well a little bit with asking people, like, how does that make you feel, especially early on when you haven't made that rapport, because I refer back to Carl Rogers, one of the big founders of the humanistic or client-centered approach. If you actually give your client that time, and I am a true believer like you, that the client has the answers, but sometimes they might just need that time to be able to reveal the answers, and suddenly throwing on them, how does that make you feel, can be quite sort of scary for people.
Many times too, they're dissociated from the feeling. They may not be able to label the feeling because it's too intense. Or even if you ask them, how do you want to feel, they may not be ready to identify how they want to feel instead of how they have been feeling. So pacing and timing within that client session is essential, but you're gaining enough rapport. That means that the client is trusting you, trusting the process. Then they're going to relax, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That relaxation helps a person then process better, because if they're really upset and if you triggered them and they're going into their really doomsday report, how things have been for them, that potentially might make them more stressed talking about it. Let's face it, you're resurfacing the stuff that's really big for them. So that can be quite nerve-wracking by itself, just starting to talk to a stranger about stuff that's really, really intimate to you. So building that trust and pacing at the beginning, giving them enough time to unpack, that you go, well, who is really sitting in front of me today, and what is really motivating them behind the changes that they wish to see?
Yeah, for sure. And sort of acknowledging to your client that you're actually hearing what they say. So maybe mirroring back some of what they've actually told you. you don't have to agree what they've actually told you if they're talking about something that's happened and and the behaviour that they've done, but just acknowledge that they've been heard.
Yeah. So when we're kind of looking at that idea of mirroring back, it's not necessarily exact word for word, but it could be a little summary of, so what I hear you saying is that every time you come home and you go into that space where your husband's upset, it causes you to feel really anxious. Is that right? So you're making sure you're connecting in with them. Let's look at using their language patterns rather than your language patterns. If I said, oh, I'm really angry, and you might be having an angry day too, my anger and your anger might be quite different.
Chances are they will be too.
Yeah. So if you had 10 people in a room and you say, okay, what makes you angry and how does that feel outside of just angry? Okay, so it could be, I feel sad, I feel disconnected, I feel abused, and now the next person, they say, well, this is what makes me angry. I feel distant, I feel confused, I feel powerless. The next person, they have their story. Well, this is what makes me angry, and away they go. And their emotional expression of what anger actually is, the combination of emotions, may be quite unique.
And again, that brings us back to listening to your client and not trying to problem solve for them.
So when we're looking at that idea of solution focus, okay, so who's got the solutions? The client does. What is our job? Our job is to guide them through self-actualisation. There's a part in hypnosis that you can ask their inner guide, that you can ask their higher self, you can ask their inner compass, whatever it is that you might term that part of them that knows the answer. So we can actually go to the subconscious, say, well, subconscious, you're the one running these programs. Is it okay for Mary today to let go of that old program? And you might get them to elicit a response either by nodding their head saying yes or no, or using idiomotor signals with their fingers. So there are many ways that you get the buy-in from the subconscious part that's in charge of the programs. We were watching a journey that one of our fellow hypnotherapists does with children called the magic carpet. And she gets the person to think about a guide, so someone there. And really, at the end of the day, the guide is the person. But it's just a dissociative way of kind of getting them to give themselves guidance.
Wise one, wasn't it, that she called them? Yeah.
The wise one, yeah. And it could become an owl, it could become a teddy bear, it could become an angel, it could become a gnome, it could be anything. But the child is in charge, or grandparent, the child is in charge of manifesting what that's going to be.
Yeah.
So you're not prescribing, oh, you see this teddy bear and it is you're going to be your guide. So we're getting away from prescribing how it's going to be and what it is as a guide.
Because it really does make a difference, doesn't it? When the client actually comes up with those solutions and use what resonates with them to how much they take on board and how the issue resolves itself, because you've got that rapport and it's what they actually want. It's their solution.
Yeah. So you can ask or elicit a beginning point. You can say, would it be okay if you had a guide to support you? So this is a question, okay? It's not an absolute, but gives the client a chance to say no. But usually they say yes because they want support, right? So then you say, well, can you imagine what that guide's going to be like for you? Who is that guide going to be? And they will start to draw on their own creativity to bring that guide in. The guide might also have superpowers, be able to help that person. But again, if you're a hypnotherapist and you're saying, would it be okay if that guide had superpowers? So you can bring in some of these assets or ideas, but the client needs to have the buy-in.
Yeah. And for
And
children, a good one is having a big
what the superpowers are going to be. So, you can ask, so what's going to, what kind of superpowers do you need your guide to have? Then the client's involved. The client is going to come up with those things. Have you got any questions for me, Teresa, about what we're covering today?
Unlocking your true potential. Humanistic approach. Okay, so if a client came into you and was really nervous, you could see that they were quite resistant to they wanted to be there, but you could feel that they're quite resistant about moving forwards. What would you suggest for people would be the best way to actually shift that and flip that emotion so that you can get that humanistic approach and you can start unlocking their true potential? Because obviously if they're resistant, they're not going to be possibly in rapport with you or ready to move forwards.
Yeah. First of all, the white elephant in the room, that's saying that you actually want to start talking about the things that otherwise you would avoid. You say, look, what do you think about, let's say it's a smoker. So we'll bring in a case study. So let's say it's a smoker, and the smoker's been told by their GP that they need to stop smoking, otherwise they can't have the operation they need. So that client doesn't want to quit smoking, but they need the operation. So they kind of need to, but they're not really in that headspace. But let's say the GP has said, look, how about you try hypnotherapy? I've heard that that's really good for people to switch their mindset, and it might help you to quit smoking. And the person's kind of feeling grumpy at this point, not really feeling too involved in it, but a bit desperate. So there's some mixed messages, mixed feelings going on for the client. So they make the appointment begrudgingly. They would rather not have to, but there they are. They've turned up, and you sense, that they're not too ready to quit. So you might say, so what brings you in today? And they start to share, well, hey, I'm only in here because I've been forced to. You go, okay, there's that first little red flag that maybe this client isn't quite there yet. So you're hunting, you're looking out for that slight resistance language and the yes but and the justification of why they feel they can't ever change or any of that stuff. So there's a lot of resistance language that you're starting to hear in their story. What is important, though, is to get them to flip into thinking, well, if you were to change, what would that be like? Now, the person may not have fully contemplated this, but looking at the pros and cons and helping a person to discover the pros and cons of change can be extremely useful for a resistant client. But that's about you asking a lot of open-ended questions and mirroring back without judgment. So you're watching your tone, you're being potentially really curious. So the person feels that they can start to say whatever they need to without that judgment coming back at them. So if you say, well, yes, but what if you were to be able to change successfully, what would that be like? Now, that could be too harsh for a resistant client. So I might soften off my approach to say, okay, I can understand that. What do you think it would be like if you were able to change? So I might change my tone, my pace, into a very gentle tone and pace. And it allows the person to feel safer to explore the possibilities. However, if we're using yes but language to them, challenging them too much, that might cause resistance.
Yeah.
The open-ended questions move a person to the self-actualisation. Yeah. Did that answer the question?
Yes, did thank you. Yep. Can you recall any really difficult clients that you've actually had when they've come into you? Yeah, the trouble that you've had shifting, making that shift. Yeah.
I had a woman years ago, and she came in. She really needed to quit smoking. Again, health-wise, there was a whole lot of things going on, but she was so entrenched, and she'd been to other people, and it had never worked. And she'd tried Champax and nicotine and patches and gum and lozenge and all of these things, and nothing had worked. And she was just feeling desperate. But she was also in that point where, oh, well, if I don't quit, well, it is what it is. I cannot recall exactly. There was something that was extremely important for her about quitting. Like there was something big. It was too many years ago to remember exactly her motivation. But I needed to elicit some ego strengthening within the client session, and also normalize the past is done, that you're not the same version. And each time we go and do something new, we go with information of what not to do. So what did you learn about those times where it didn't quite work? You didn't quite stay on track for more than 48 hours or whatever. So I started to talk to her about that. What was your journey? What was it like last time you quit? How were you feeling? Did you make peace with it? That kind of thing. So I'm curious about how that person really, how optimistic they were to begin with, or how pessimistic they were, whether they believed it was going to be easy or hard. So dealing with that particular client, I needed her to believe in herself, first of all. And it's not about me having the magic strategy. It's about her going away feeling that she has the strength to do this. So how do I get her to believe in herself? Now, she was quite stubborn, and I utilized this fact. I said, interesting that you say you're very stubborn. She also used another word. I've got an addictive personality. So I said, well, what if you were addicted to looking after yourself and you got really stubborn about that?
Yeah.
So I'm inviting a real pattern interrupt by asking that question of possibility.
And you're using your clients' own words, so they'll resonate to them and make them think more about it, because if they hadn't said that to you, it wouldn't resonate.
Yeah. So what if you could use those two things that in the past were negative in a positive way? This begins to create a catalyst of potential change. So they can't use the same story of, I guess, that story that's got them trapped. And, it's kind of this perpetual, woe is me, I can never do this is hard, I guess I have to resign, that I won't be able to do this thing because I'm not going to ever be able to quit. But I'm giving it a go as a last-ditch attempt. I mean, really, she came in and she was in quite the state of nervousness. And you've got to be careful, again, of keeping that rapport, keeping the pace with the client, and knowing when you have little tiny opportunities to get in there and ask great questions.
Yeah.
And she quit, by the way. So, and she stayed quit. So that was really cool. We did a follow-up. I think we had 2 other follow-up sessions because I wanted to cover relapse prevention with her and make sure she was really on track. And she felt that she needed an external witness too to keep her honest. So that was good.
But again, it's what you were listening to, what she actually wanted. So, you've got that rapport and you're using that humanistic approach.
People have lots of tools, lots of skills, lots of superpowers in themselves. And if you can allow that session to move towards that super ego strengthening, that person then really goes away out of your clinic really believing in themselves, believing that they've got what they need. The question is, they need to work out what they need.
For sure. So I'm hoping that, you know, listeners have got some good insights and takeaways from you today. If you've enjoyed today's session and it's given you a bit of a taster and you want to learn more, then please go along to Meredith School website, nzach.ac.nz, and check out for more. Also remember to like, subscribe and share for weekly updates. Do you have anything else to sort of share with the viewers today, Meredith?
Not really. I guess be curious. Just, you know, keeping that curiosity, pace with your client, and know that the client has the answers. These 3 things are really important, where you can help that person feel strong enough to make whatever changes it is that they need to make.
And I can assure you, it may sound scary for now, but if you actually enroll within the school, then Meredith will be there step by step to help walk you through that, so that when you come out at the end of it, you have a wonderful diploma and you also have the skill sets to be able to set up business, work with clients in confidence.
It's available online too, so you don't have to be here in New Zealand to do it. We have a series like 48 sessions that are 2.5 hours every week, and we go through the different modules, and you get a chance to break away and work with people in that space, and it is a place of learning and questions and inquiry, practice. There's lots of information in the background too on the portal, the learning portal, which you can sort of drill down, recommended reading and so on. So look, we're here to support people too, and we do have the mentorship program available if people have already qualified and are a little bit not sure how to build up their business. This is another part of what I do offer people. So if that's one of you out there that want to build your business stronger, have a look at the mentorship package that I offer too. Yeah, so thank you, everyone, and thank you, Teresa, for joining me again today for another talk time. And we'll see you next week. And if there are any questions that you'd like to ask us, please feel free to put those in the comments below, and we'll do our best to get back to people. And if there's any topics you'd like us to cover, that can be something that you can put in the comments. So just visiting our website, finding more information online about that, all the drill down on what's on the modules is all on the website. So there's nothing hidden there. So you can find out more that way. So thank you, Teresa.
Thanks, Meredith. Bye, everybody. Have a good week.
Bye.